Birds like to lay their eggs in trees. Some ducks build elaborate nests out of sticks. And if you're a penguin, your nest is basically just a hole in the snow. No matter what kind of nest they make, all birds have one thing in common. Their nests are pretty darn cute. Dinosaurs, though, well, they preferred something a little different, which scientists are just now discovering thanks to an extraordinary array of new fossils from Canada to China. Over the past few decades, paleontologists have uncovered hundreds of dinosaur nests, even more dinosaur eggs and embryos. And they're starting to notice that not all dinosaurs nested the same way. Some built elaborate raised platforms with many clutches of eggs packed neatly inside, while others had much more, shall we say, eclectic tastes in nest building, piling their eggs into piles or burying them in random spots or just leaving them lying around. And it looks like these nesting strategies might have been more complex than we thought. These new studies help us understand not just how dinosaurs made their nests, but also what their environments were like, what their eggs were made of, and maybe even why some species went extinct and others didn't. It's just one more way that dinosaurs continue to teach us about the world. When a horned dinosaur named Boreopelta Mark Mitchelli laid its eggs 76 million years ago, it did so in a shallow depression in the ground near a stream. The nest itself was probably made of sticks and leaves, but over time, water may have washed away all traces of that. All that remains today is a collection of 24 oval imprints, each about the size of a grapefruit. This is what's known as a track site, where an organism's behavior has left an imprint on the geology of the Earth. And track sites can reveal loads of information about ancient creatures. For example, by studying the texture of the rock surrounding these nests, researchers can tell what kind of environment the dinosaurs lived in. Since these nests were found on a floodplain, the dinosaurs probably lived in a world full of swamps and lakes. Based on other fossil evidence, we know that Boreopelta Mark Mitchell lived during the height of the Cretaceous period, when most of the northern hemisphere was experiencing a warm climate. So these dinosaurs likely lived in a lush tropical forest with lots of rainfall. And because their nests were near a stream, the dinosaurs probably took advantage of the water source for drinking and swimming. In fact, based on these nests alone, scientists think they were living in a sort of dinosaur suburb, since finding this many nests in one spot suggests that this was a prime nesting area. These dinosaurs returned year after year to raise their young in this floodplain paradise. Speaking of returning year after year, let's talk about these marks. A closer analysis of the rock revealed that they weren't all perfectly round, like you might expect a dinosaur egg to be. Some of them had weird textures, like wavy lines or rough bumps, which suggests that the eggs themselves had changed shape before they hardened. And based on other fossil evidence, scientists know that sauropods like Boreopelta Mark Mitchell laid eggs with flexible shells, similar to modern birds. That means as the eggs developed inside, they expanded until the shell was stretched thin in certain spots, creating those strange bumps and ridges. Of course, you don't need stretchy shells to make bumpy eggs. Sometimes the bumps are there from the start, and this brings us to another kind of nest. Unlike the sauropods, the Ornithomimid dinosaurs had rigid, bumpy eggs with a texture similar to sandpaper. These dinosaurs were small, feathered creatures that looked like a mix between a kangaroo and an ostrich. And unlike the sauropods, they lived in dry, mountainous environments, at least based on where their fossils have been found. So far, they've only been found in Mongolia and China, where they would have lived alongside the mighty T-Rex and Velociraptor. But while we think they were pretty widespread, we don't know too much about them because they only occasionally left behind fossils. And one of the few pieces of evidence we do have comes from these eggs. In 2018, scientists found 3 nests containing dozens of eggs, along with a bunch of fossilized eggs hidden nearby. The nests themselves were simple scrapes in the ground without any signs of lining or decoration. They also weren't built in a very ideal location, since they were nestled precariously on the edge of a cliff. But the strangest thing about them was the eggs, which were shaped like lenses instead of ovals. And unlike the sauropod eggs, they showed no signs of being stretched or squished. At first, scientists thought these unusual eggs might have belonged to a relative of the dinosaurs called a mammal. But based on other fossils, we now know that ornithomimids definitely were dinosaurs. Instead, it seems like their eggs were simply better suited for life on land. Ornithomimids needed to stay far from water sources to avoid predators like crocodiles, as having sturdy lens-shaped eggs probably helped them retain moisture. while still being flexible enough to hatch. These adaptations allowed them to thrive in dry climates. Meanwhile, the sauropods with their sturdy round eggs needed water to survive, but the two strategies required different kinds of nests, and the differences between them are staggering. Take, for example, the ornate nests of the herbivorous Myasaura. This long-necked dinosaur laid her eggs in shallow depressions lined with twigs and pebbles. But she wasn't just a haphazard hoarder of twigs and pebbles. Her nest was carefully designed with multiple clutches of eggs stacked on top of each other. And each clutch was surrounded by a moat of sorts, which contained bits of shell from previous clutches. The space between the moats was filled with pebbles, which kept the eggs from rolling away. And the entire structure was huge. Myasaura built giant platforms with up to 33 clutches of eggs, making them among the largest dinosaur nests ever discovered. That's equivalent to around 1,000 chicken eggs. And as you can imagine, building something that big takes a lot of time and materials. Other dinosaurs, though, seemed happy with something smaller. Take the Ankylosaurus, a large armored dinosaur that lived in what is now North America. At one site in Texas, scientists found almost 100 eggs buried in a shallow layer of sediment. There was no sign of a nest structure or even an attempt to hide the eggs. And the eggs themselves were smooth and uniform, which makes it unlikely that they rolled very far before being covered by sediment. Scientists think this dinosaur simply poked a hole in the sediment with its powerful legs and laid its eggs in a spot that was already somewhat concealed. Then it filled the hole back in with more sediment, burying its eggs just out of sight. It's unclear whether this was a one-time thing or part of a larger nesting strategy, but it does resemble the behavior of some modern animals. For example, some turtles will bury their eggs in the sand after laying them, while others leave their eggs exposed. And some frogs will guard their eggs until they hatch. So while it's impossible to know what the Ankylosaurus was thinking, it's possible that this dinosaur exhibited something akin to parental care. But no matter how the Ankylosaurus made its nest, it probably didn't stick around to see if anything hatched. It seems that most dinosaurs abandoned their eggs after laying them, whether they were carefully constructed or hastily buried. And there might be good reasons for that. Building a nest can take a ton of energy. By investing resources into building a home for their young, adults were putting themselves in a precarious position. If a hungry predator happened upon a nest, the adults could use that time to escape and live another day. Plus, once eggs are laid, the parents have nothing more to offer their young, who will fend for themselves from the moment they hatch. So it makes sense that dinosaurs wouldn't stick around to protect their young. After all, they probably never even saw them in the first place. In the end, dinosaurs clearly had a wide range of nesting preferences, just like birds do today. But while we're uncovering more and more of these nesting habits, scientists are still looking for the proverbial needle in a haystack. Dinosaur nests are difficult to preserve, so even in areas where dinosaurs thrived, like the Dinosaur Park Formation in Alberta, Canada, the number of nests is staggering low compared to the number of dinosaur fossils. So we still have a lot to learn about how dinosaurs built their homes. And that means that even though we haven't discovered any dinosaur nests in our own backyards, who knows? Maybe one day we will.